Hi, thank you for joining me today. This short video is all about using subordinating conjunctions. First of all, I'm going to explain what conjunctions are, and then we will look specifically at subordinating conjunctions. So, first of all, when we speak about the word conjunction, we are looking at a word that is used a bit like glue. It links parts of the sentence together, and conjunctions generally are used to link words, phrases, or clauses together. And there are several different types of conjunctions. There is another video that I have uploaded about coordinating conjunctions, but this video is going to focus specifically on subordinating conjunctions. Now, when we speak about conjunctions, they are part of what we call a closed word class. What that means is there are no other words that can be added to the list of conjunctions. So once you have learned them, you don't need to worry about other words being added into that group. Word class such as nouns, there are new words being added all of the time in that group. So you can't possibly learn all of them. But conjunctions, there are never going to be any new conjunctions added to that word class. So when we are speaking about subordinating conjunctions, they are used to link a main clause and a subordinate clause. And I will speak more about subordinate clauses as we work our way through the session. But I just wanted to speak about the specific words that are within the subordinating conjunctions group, because I know that at school, many of you will learn either I saw a wobble, and each of the letters in that stands for a different conjunction. Some of you will learn on a white bus as a way of remembering certain conjunctions, but be mindful that if you are learning I saw a wobble, they are not the only subordinating conjunctions there are. I have put some of the most common ones on your screen, but there are kind of about 50 of them. So you will need to just make sure that you are familiar with some of the less common ones, such as assuming that, whether or not, even though. And with some of the subordinating conjunctions, the ones that I've just mentioned, it is more than one word that makes the conjunction. So just be aware of that if you're trying to spot it within a sentence. Now, when we look at subordinating conjunctions, there are many different reasons that they are used. So you've got those conjunctions that establish the time that the main clause is happening. So you might talk about after you have eaten your dinner, before you go to bed, and until the rain has stopped. So that is showing time. You might have the subordinating conjunction that shows a reason. So you might say, because it was raining, because she was sick, so that he could go to the shops. And that those conjunctions are giving reasons for something. And you might have noticed as I am giving you the subordinate clause, it doesn't actually make sense. And you need the main clause to link with these subordinate clauses for it to make complete sense. But I'll speak about that once we've had a look at the other uses. So you've got the rules and conditions. So if your main clause relies on other information, so if you have finished your homework, unless the rain stops, those are conditions or rules for the main clause to happen. Then we have concessions. And concessions, they give us more context about the main clause. So you might talk about Adam ate the pizza as the main clause, even though it wasn't his, is the subordinate clause. So even though is a subordinating conjunction that shows concession. Then we have the comparison, and that will compare something that happens in the main clause to something in the subordinate clause. So you might talk about Sam enjoys art, whereas, and that is a conjunction, Sue prefers reading. So you are comparing what Ella enjoys to what Sue enjoys. Then you have place, and this shows the relation of sort of the position of the main clause in relation to the subordinate clause. So I might talk about this is a house, and where I used to live would be my subordinate clause. And then the final one that fits with this particular group is manner. And the subordinating conjunctions that show manner, they give us more information about how the main clause is done. So the boy climbed up the ladder as if he was a monkey. That is how he is climbing up the ladder. And the one last group that I wanted to mention, because they fit into this group, but there is a separate session about them, and that is the relative pronouns, because relative pronouns, they are used at the beginning of relative clauses. And when you learn about relative clauses, you will learn that they are a special type of subordinate clause. I'm not going to speak about them too much today because we have a whole separate session on those. And I just wanted to finish by speaking about subordinate clauses and how they kind of link with the subordinating conjunction. So a subordinate clause, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, it doesn't make sense on its own. It still has a subject, it still has a verb, but it won't make sense. So if I say, if you've finished your homework, you wouldn't have a clue what I'm on about because there isn't a main clause to give you that context. So if I said you can go swimming if you have finished your homework, that makes sense because you know what the main clause is. So your subordinate clauses, what they are essentially doing is adding extra information or explaining more about the main clause. Okay, as I mentioned previously, the relative clause is a special type of subordinate clause that I'm not going to touch on too much today. And I just wanted to pop a sentence on the screen because with subordinating conjunctions and subordinate clauses, I'll use the example of the swimming. So you can go swimming. So you can go swimming if you have finished your homework. So the if you have finished your homework is the condition of someone going swimming. Now, what you can do with a subordinating conjunction and subordinate clauses, you can change where it goes in the sentence. So what I could do with this, I could say, if you have finished your homework, and the important bit with this is you need to remember a comma after the subordinate clause. So if you have finished your homework, you can go swimming. And if you just look here, I have, in the first sentence, I've got, you can go swimming. That is my main clause. In my second sentence, my main clause is coming at the end. You can go swimming. Okay. And then in my first sentence, if you have finished your homework, that is the subordinate clause that is going at the end. In my second sentence, I have started the sentence with the subordinate clause. So if you have finished your homework, and then the important bit, if you are using a subordinate clause at the beginning of the sentence, it must have the comma between the subordinate clause and the main clause. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you've found this session helpful. I look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. Bye.